The R model is iconic. So introduced in 1965, the R model, the look of the R model, it's it's incredible looking. It's an iconic truck. It made history for Mack. It made history for all the companies that bought them, all the people that bought them.
For the past year, I've been putting my personal touch on this R Model Mack. Countless hours, late nights, and a whole lot of work have gone into this restoration. And now, it's finally time to bring it to its forever home, the Mack Trucks Historical Museum in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Seeing it roll in, getting it unloaded, giving it that final cleanup, and installing it into the museum is a moment I'll never forget. It's bittersweet to see this journey come to an end, but I couldn't be prouder of how far it's come and everything I've learned along the way. This has been a labor of love, and now it's ready for its next chapter. Want to see the full walk around? Let's take a look.
All right guys, after over a year of working on this R Model Mack restoration, we have finally got it in the museum, and today is reveal day. So Doug, can you give me a little bit of the history on this truck?
Well, it just so happened this 1984 Mack R model. It's an R685T, but was used as a platform. So it was used as a tanker truck, but it was built as a T tractor. So just a unique thing about this one specific truck. This truck was built for Johnny Prescott, which was an oil company up in New Hampshire. Still has the Johnny Prescott horn button, custom made for. Single axle configuration, EM6 250 with a 5-speed transmission. So it was the perfect setup for fuel delivery and many other tasks of the day. So being that it was a tractor configuration on the title and on the build sheet, it was fitting that this truck becomes a tractor. This being a New England truck, spoke wheels. Spokes on a Mack, especially an R model, is where it's at. The time frame that the R models were built was such an incredible time frame for Mack. They introduced the Maxidine engine and just really had an iconic period to set themselves in trucking, follow up on their legacy created by the B series in the R model. The step tanks, unique mounting situation with the tanks, where the front tank is pocket mounted, front of the tank, and the rear is strap mounted. There's so many things on an R model that are fantastic that carried over into the other models. This is a little longer wheelbase for a tractor, but that's what we were looking for here at the museum, to be able to move trailers around. Just to be able to see better, because typically we move trailers with sleeper cab trucks. This is going to work phenomenal for us. This R model, 1984 R model, this is the build record for the R model that the Mack Museum is able to supply. Says all the details of the truck as built when new in 1984, but there's been some changes to it over the last year. How about you cover a few of those for us?
Yeah, where to start? We completely redid the paint. I had no idea. I went to the paint store to get the paint for this project. Had no idea what color I wanted to do. And I was just flipping through the book. I knew I wanted something sparkly because I like sparkly things. And I thought this blue would just contrast the light blue perfectly, especially out in the sunlight. This turns into more of a royal blue, and it really makes the light blue pop. Did exactly what I wanted it to, and I love it.
Very good at that. That
Thanks.
did a good job.
Thanks. And speaking of the paint, I do want to give a shout out to Advantage Paint and Body Supplies out of O'Fallon, Missouri. They donated the paint for this project, and I just love the way that it turned out. Then moving back here, this was a completely empty frame when we got it, and I knew I wanted storage of some sort. So starting with the toolbox, thank you to Merit Aluminum for donating the toolboxes for this project. We actually ordered 2 originally because we talked about this, putting a toolbox on each side.
Yeah.
And ultimately I decided against that for a couple different reasons. One, they're way bigger than I thought they were gonna be, and I thought having a toolbox on each side that was that big was just gonna be too much. So I decided to put one centrally located on the back. That way everything you need is right here and you can access it from either side rather than coming over here and, oh, the thing I need is in that toolbox, so let me go all the way around the truck to get the one thing that I need. So I thought that would be perfect and it looks great.
That's a very good point, because I would not have thought about that. So thank you. Thanks for keeping me from running around the truck
Yeah.
looking for my goodies in the
Right.
boxes. Yeah, these Merit boxes are really nice. Nice clean, seal, keep everything inside dry. Nice mounting, clean all the way around. Good job.
There was actually an air dryer mounted right here where the step is. And we moved that inside. That way we could move the step back to make it easier to get into the toolbox. Because if the step was right here, you'd have to lean over it to get to the toolbox, and we didn't want that. So we moved the air dryer to the inside, moved the step back a little bit, and it makes it easier to get to the toolbox, and I think it looks a lot better that way too. And then to keep the clean look all the way back, we decided to go with diamond plate deck plate. Next thing we did, this pogo stick actually came off of Gavin's R model, so I'm sure you've seen the video of him and I going to Texas to pick up his R model. Apparently he bought that to hang out with me, which I think is adorable. So I definitely wanted to tie that in a little bit, and one of the things that we did was with the pogo stick. He had 3 on his truck, so I took one of them off, cleaned it up, and we put it on here.
A little bit of an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he goes and buys a truck just to hang out with you.
Just a subtle icebreaker. Another thing that we pulled off of his truck was this 5th wheel. It was very dirty. We spent days cleaning this thing. Took it to get sandblasted, primed it, and painted it to match the cab. And I think I was a little bit nervous because I'd never done a project like that before, but I think it turned out awesome. We had to cut off the old angle and cut out new angle and weld it on. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks seamless, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. Plus, it's a cool part of the story that this came off of Gavin's truck.
Yeah, 5th wheel work's difficult because they spend their lives in grease. Mm-hmm. To try to paint something like that is extremely tough. So good job.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with it. Another thing that Doug and I had talked about before we even got started with the project was adding steps on either side. So these steps, I designed them and I sent them to R&L Metalworks out of Tell City, Indiana. They were great to work with, and they donated these for the project. We ended up color matching these to the 5th wheel and the cab just because I wanted to tie in more of the darker blue back here since we had a lot of the lighter blue elements up there. So I think this looks great. Another thing that we did was tied in the deck plate on the steps, just because this on its own I thought looked a little bit out of place since there's really nowhere else that has it. We opted to do quarter fenders. We had talked about this. Half fenders would look silly. I think full rounds would be too much just because the color combination is already loud enough. I thought quarter fenders were simple. They look great. We color matched the bracket to the 5th wheel, so it looks really clean, and Road Choice actually donated these for the project, so we're really thankful for that as well. So Doug can talk a little bit more about where this truck came from, but the frame is brand new, right?
It was reframed and long because the truck was built to be a fuel tanker. Mm-hmm. So a fuel tanker, of course, you have more frame out the back. To convert it to a tractor, needed to be adjusted a little bit. So,
yes. So
2 feet were cut off.
Yeah, we cut off, I think, like 2.5 feet. It came out to like right here. It was crazy long, but definitely cutting it off tied it together way more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
It made a big difference, and it looks really good. The first thing I knew that I was going to do this truck when I got it was straight pipe it. Why?
Every Mack should have a straight pipe.
Best upgrade you can make right here.
When you talked about it at first, I was like, but you can't argue the sound.
No, you can't.
You can't argue the sound.
When taking this truck apart to paint it, I knew that there was going to be some pieces on the cab that I wanted to leave the light blue, and this was definitely at the top of the list. I knew that the bands against the dark blue would look really good, and it would add that perfect touch of light blue on the cab, and I think it did I intended for it to do.
The wear plates and everything, you left blue too. That's, yeah, it ties it together. It really does a good job.
I think so too, because the colors, just the frame and the cab, I feel like that would have been way too separate. So I tried to integrate the dark blue on the frame at the back and the light blue on the cab at the front to kind of mesh everything together.
Yeah. I see that up here on the front bumper, the filler panel. It's light blue. Of course, it's tied to the frame pretty much, but no, it's excellent. And spokes, I can't say enough about spokes because you talked about switching this over.
I know.
I didn't think it was a good idea.
I think I am glad that I kept them. I'm glad that I kept them, and I like that the white can be tied into the logo as well.
Yeah.
So I think you were right on keeping those.
No, don't say I'm right. I was just all the way around. That was, you know, spokes on a Mack. That's where it's at.
Spokes and straight pipes.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Under here, one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure to leave the underside of the hood, and we did it on the visor too, but I wanted to leave the underside the light blue. That way, in the sun, you could get a little bit of a peek of the light blue underneath, and again, that contrast is really beautiful. So we wanted to keep that and embrace that a little bit.
I noticed that when it was up on the trailer, the underside of the hood, fender well kicking out, very nice.
Well, when we did that, I didn't think it would be that noticeable. When we pulled it outside, you could really tell, and I was so glad that I made that decision.
And what about these seats?
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's talk about the seats. The seats, I didn't realize how good of a find those were. But I got 2 passenger seats, which is fine because passenger seats, I fit better in passenger seats anyway. I just don't like being on the passenger side. So I took the seat itself and I put it on the air ride base. That way it's still air ride. It's just with a smaller seat, which is more comfortable for me. So we did these awesome gray vinyl seats, and we ended up going with gray upholstered interior. Got that from Winrock Truck Parts and installed that, and I think it looks great. It matches the seats really well, way better than I could have imagined, but overall, I think the seats is one of my favorite things about the truck. I really like the seats.
Well, the diamond plate pattern on the seats from that era of Mack product ties in with the diamond plate kick plate, the steps, and things that we talked about a year ago with diamond plates. So.
And if you look at the diamond plate fabric, there's a little tinge of blue in there.
Aha.
So I thought it was perfect for this project when I saw them.
Good tie-in.
Yeah.
So initially, the truck shows up at your farm in Kentucky. Greg Hoffman of Underdog Transport donated the haul from Florida to Kentucky. So the truck originated in Florida by way of New Hampshire from J&H Rhymes and Daughters. Jim Rhymes and Heather and their daughters have a collection of antique vehicles. They really kind of prefer Mack, but that's the origin of the truck. So he knew when I was looking for an R model for this project that this would be a good foundation. And he was most excited about having the truck involved in the process, in the project, for getting people involved and interested in old Macks, antique trucks, and a younger group such as yourself and the people who follow you. So really a boost to the hobby, and that's kind of been the driving force for a lot of us through the years. We want to see the hobby go on. We want to see old Macks still working, and you still use them, Gavin still uses them, and this truck could be put back to work tomorrow if it needed to. Fortunately, it's got a home here at the Mack Trucks Historical Museum where it will never leave.
Speaking of this truck having a forever home here, there is tons of other cool stuff for people to view here. For history buffs and truck enthusiasts alike, what are some things here that people come to see?
Yeah, we have a huge collection of memorabilia. We have a very nice collection of trucks that you can see. The earliest one's a 1909 Mack Brothers bus, which that's what the Mack Brothers started building in 1900, were buses. Until 1905, they built their first truck. Our oldest truck on display is a 1911 Mack Jr. We have variety of trucks up through that time period to have on display. We also take some trucks on loan that we have on display as well. So the display changes fairly often, so that when you come here again and again, you're not seeing the same old thing over and over again. That's a downfall of museums. So we try to keep it fresh and keep it updated. This past year, we've added new signs to the display, and we're always adding memorabilia to our display cases and showcases. We have things donated because we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're independent of Mack Trucks. They contribute to us. They give us this wonderful space to be able to display Mack history in, but we are funded by donations. Our donations are what makes us, gives us the ability to make displays, to update displays, to restore trucks, to maintain trucks, all here on the property. So it's a great place for anyone who has an interest in Mack history, but Mack history parallels American history and really world history, because Mack has such an influence around the world. You see this logo, whether you're in Albuquerque or Afghanistan, that's a Mack logo, and that's a Mack truck.
Yeah.
That's why you have an affection for the brand. I have an affection for the brand. All of the friends of the museum have an affection for the brand. All of the people who buy Mack, really down deep, have a love for the brand. That's where your followers, out there seeing what you're doing with your stuff, driving and working and doing all that, tie it into the brand. And the hope is, and the dream is, that they catch the bug, whether it's for a Mack, hopefully for a Mack, but at any old truck. There's such a great part of history to be observed and understood and learned by trucking and the trucking industry and trucking history that is often so overlooked. So that's what we're here for. The Mack Museum, with probably about 50 million pages of documents that we use to answer requests. So if you have a request on an old truck, an old Mack truck, go to our website, you can put a request in, and we answer those requests. That build record that I was holding earlier for this truck, we have on file. Our oldest build record is chassis number 8, which was a bus that was built in about 1903. We have that documentation. When you want to know how to work on a transmission, or you want to know what part or what bolt holds that piece, we can give you that information from our archive, and we do that for donation. I've been here 10 years, 18 and a half prior as a volunteer, and I'm still amazed of some of the things that we can do. It's unbelievable,
crazy.
The information we have. So,
And I have taken advantage of that a few times.
a couple times here and there.
Yeah.
But that's what we're here for. That's the museum, the staff, the volunteers at the museum, all love Mack Trucks. We know you do. Thank you for what you've done for us, and we appreciate the R Model being here, and we're gonna have a good time with it.
So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for following along with the series. It has been a total learning curve, but I am almost positive it is not the last Mack restoration I'm going to be doing. So be sure to follow along. If you're interested in contacting the museum or donating to the museum, I will put all of that information in the description box, and that's all I have. Thank you guys so much. It's really easy, just like this. Yeah, let's just start over.
No.
I thought that was pretty good.